Hello, welcome back to the L1 show. Today is January 9th, and we're doing 3 sections today. Social, government, and was it security?
This is going to be the worst week for Level 1 news of the year because CES has happened or is happening, and that'll be next week. We will have CES coverage next week.
And also, we just did a live stream earlier this week, so all of our stories are mostly covered, so...
Worst episode of the year, or episode series.
And apparently the EU and China didn't do anything this week.
It just went into... it's Chinese New Year, right? When is Chinese New Year?
No, it's in January.
Is it in February?
Is it yet?
You got some time.
Okay.
But also, there were a couple people that fell out of buildings around the Moscow area, but,
Well, that's just a normal day, right?
It's not really tech related, though. But this one is, and this one involves China a little bit. You could maybe call this a China story. But we are finding out that a lot of the money that was helicoptered to the people during the bad times of the past few years was misused. Most of it was just straight up stolen or fraudulently obtained, but some people were a little more creative.
New Jersey used the relief funds from the global situation to buy banned Chinese surveillance cameras. Dahua, in this case, 404, didn't want to report that. I don't know why.
No, it's in there.
Oh, it is? Okay. Yeah. Well, they've got redacted pictures and stuff, and the court filings are all redacted. Like, the ones that they link to is just, prohibited company 1, and it's like, what?
Why would they redact it? Yeah.
When we reported on this, we said this would happen. This isn't... If you follow the Level 1 news, this should not be a surprise, but this is happening all over the country.
Oh, it's the Level 1 show?
Oh, yeah, right. Well, links with friends. Links with friends.
So it's interesting, not just because they did this, but because you might be thinking, what do surveillance cameras have to do with that? How does that help that? Well, the rules said you shouldn't do that. This should be given to things that would be helped by that. But this guy, his name was Zachary, had a company called Packatalk, and he actually would help them craft the fraudulent paperwork. And they got, screenshots here where he says, yeah, I changed the color and I removed the logo. Everything should be good. Oof. From the prohibited company, which he capitalized.
Just why?
So, yeah, not shocking. Or, not exactly a mystery here.
Also, Hikvision or Hikvision or Hikvision.
Hikvision is funnier, I think.
Same deal. I don't know why, but governments love to buy those cameras. And, there's some renovation happening in our town of the municipal buildings, and it's like, oh, what security cameras did they put up? And it's like, that's a prohibited camera. Gonna have to file a memo on that.
But, not only should we be angry because of the surveillance state, but also because the surveillance state is literally just going into our pockets again, more than usual, in creative ways to become a surveillance state.
Sometimes it's just a clever entrepreneur who's like, I can get free cameras if I can get them in a government building. And it's like, what? Is that not a red flag for you? No? Okay.
Well, if that's not a red flag for you, the fact that AI will soon be governing us should be a blinking red flag, and with an audio chime as well. Maybe a scream, a never-ending scream.
At the sound of the tone, your freedoms will be curtailed.
Because right now, it's just the Wild West. There aren't really any rules, so they're just doing it. But now they're saying, well, we better create some rules so that no one tries to stop us.
More than a third of state agencies are using AI. Texas is beginning to examine its potential impact.
They've put together a committee who I'm sure in 2 or 3 years will tell us something about AI when AI has changed dramatically.
You dig into this and it's like, oh my gosh, they really are analyzing driver's license photos. That's horrifying. And then you keep digging and it's like, wait, using Grammarly also counts as using AI. And it's like, these are different things.
Yeah.
Oh, we forgot to mention that the bad cameras were used for license plate reading as well.
Yeah.
So there's a variety of ways that Texas is using it beyond just the court system, which we know about, and beyond, political campaigning, but also now they're using it as an interface for the welfare system. So if you go and you're like, hey, I want some welfare, now there's an AI that will talk to you and try to walk you through how to get that.
It's like an Always Sunny. Hello, I'd like one welfare, please.
Yeah, exactly.
This is my crackhead sister D.
Look forward to that. Oh, wow. New York Times is going to not even show us
the headline.
For
New York Times.
Do you remember what this is?
Yeah, the venture capital revolving door.
The revolving door, and it's like I say the revolving door, and you're like, well, you've already talked about the revolving door, ad nauseum. What more do you have to tell us about it? We understand. government officials get out of their regulatory role and they go into the business that they're regulating. But now there is a slight new twist.
The New York Times is finally catching up to what's been going on for years. So instead of the revolving door of someone who works for government and goes to work for a private corporation, it is now someone who works for government does the venture capital thing and does a startup. And then it's like, oh, look, I have the perfect product for the government in order to do things.
There's some great pictures in this article of these people who have previously worked for, regulating defense industries and stuff like that, came out of the military, came out of the DOD, and they are at these giant trade shows looking to pour venture capital money into bombs and missiles.
Or other things the DOD or the DOJ needs.
Autonomous kill vehicles.
Sometimes it's just contract award analysis systems. Just real basic plumbing stuff, and you can't get it done. You can't get it done because you're not an insider. It's very frustrating. But at least the people involved at least one of them got referred for criminal charges. That's rare.
One out of how many?
About 150.
He probably made somebody unhappy at the top, right? Or didn't do something that was expected of him, or didn't do enough when he was in office.
I didn't say anything bad happened. I just said that they referred him for criminal charges, that nothing actually happened.
Came of it, yeah.
But the government is announcing some things, although this is a little bit of a nothing burger because there's no real action given here. Just, we're doing our best.
U.S. antitrust case against Apple's App Store exclusivity is firing on all cylinders. And once again, there's a lot of words here to just explain. It's like your phone is a computer. You buy it, you own it. How are you not allowed to run arbitrary software on it? Explain it to me as simply as I've explained it.
So this was somebody from the DOJ, obviously a non-committal statement. Most likely they're probably just waiting to see what happens in the EU.
The only answer is it's not yours. You didn't buy it.
I don't know, that big gaping hole in my wallet.
That feels like that something dishonest has happened here.
Well, there's one way to perhaps get a little more cash into that gaping hole, Krista, if you're in the market for a new car. But more and more, these EVs are too nice, and the cars are too inflated to even qualify.
We're down to just a handful of electric vehicles that qualify for the full $7,500 tax credit in the U.S. And all of, like The Verge, to its credit, almost all of the other places that carried this, the headline is like, Tesla loses its credit. And Tesla did lose its credit on some vehicles, but not all of them.
A lot of people.
But everybody lost the credit.
Yeah. This is still more cars than I thought, though. They were expensive, too. They list the price for all these. I think the lowest I saw was $55,000.
And that was a Tesla.
Yeah.
They do point out a loophole. If you lease these cars, then the car belongs to the leasing company who has a fleet. So they count as fleet cars, and then you always get the full credit. So you can use a loophole of giving special consideration to corporations for yourself.
Until they quickly button that up because it's like, oh, no, we can't have that.
That's also a way to avoid the Cybertruck resale thing is you just make an LLC that owns the car, and then you can sell the LLC, which includes the car, and they can't do anything about that.
However, in that case, the lease company gets the credit, not you.
Yeah.
But you should demand that to be taken off up front on the car because they are going to get it. But I'm sure that there's a lot of car dealerships that won't tell you that.
Probably most of them, actually.
And Krista and I...
we got lucky.
Without actually knowing this was... I mean, I knew on some level that someday this was coming, but I didn't know the timing. But boy, did we buy houses at the perfect time. Because right now, not the perfect time.
Average U.S. household can afford only the cheapest 16% of listed homes. Yes.
It is absolutely wild. Like, we've talked about this before. We live in a very low cost of living area. But even so, the houses and the rental prices have gone out of control.
So who can afford these homes? Giant real estate corporations that are buying up everything.
And then they list it for rent. But then the rent is so high, no one can live in them either.
And what could explain all this inflation? Like, where is it coming from? The television tells us, oh, don't worry about it. It's transitory.
Something money supply.
That turned out to be a lie. And then they were like, well, maybe it's happening, but it's probably your fault. And I think maybe it's got something to do with this.
CNN Business's headline is the U.S. national debt hits a record $34 trillion. That seems like a lot of dollars. Like a lot. like an incomprehensibly large number.
Now, modern monetary theory will tell you that national debt, at least in the case of the United States, is actually a good thing because we're the reserve currency. That's actually beneficial for everybody because it increases the money supply and it creates wealth and goodness. But if you don't understand how that affects inflation, I would really encourage you to look into that because it affects it directly.
All I know is you can get a 55-inch TV at Walmart for $300, and that seems like unprecedented in the history of mankind.
The problem is, it's not because that TV is cheaper to make. It's because that TV has a new revenue stream from spying on you.
It's so still made by slaves.
Hey, you know what? Our internet's getting a little better, right? And if you're in Mexico, your internet might also be improving, but at the barrel of a gun.
Mexican cartel provided Wi-Fi to locals with the threat of death if they didn't use it.
Did you see the name of this group? It was Viagra's.
Oh,
I'm sure it's pronounced some differently, but I giggled a little when I read it.
Is that why they named it Viagra? Is that just a Spanish word that means like
something else?
Virility or something?
Yeah, I don't know. Spanish-speaking members of the chat chime in.
So did the article, did it explain this was a money laundering thing? Or why was this like...
I think they said that they wanted another revenue stream because drugs were not as lucrative.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just... Maybe they saw an opening in the market, but then people didn't trust them, so they had to resort to their usual tactics. I'm not going to pretend to understand what's going on down there.
What a strange world.
If it was good internet, I don't think I'd even be mad to buy internet from the cartel.
I would probably expect the cartel to spy on me less.
Yeah, they don't really care. Like, I'm not really important to them.
Like, what could I be doing that they would disapprove of?
It's like, the media companies don't send the torrent notices to the cartel ISP.
If you are using internet in this country or television or any kind of telecommunication service that comes into your home and adds a device with a microphone, this is something we've all known all along. But for some reason, Cox, to its investors, decided to spill the beans. Now they might regret it.
Cox distances itself from its claim that it spies on users via phones and cable box microphones. Because a lot of people are noticing that and saying, wait, you do what? And it's like, don't worry, you agree to that in the terms of service. And it's like,
Now, you might be thinking, well, it's like they probably didn't say that. You're probably just assuming something. Well, this paragraph right here, just go read it.
It's the exact quote.
They literally spell it out for you. And they're proud of it. Somebody, imagine how, like, you have to be in the marketing world to put that on your website and think, oh, people are going to love this.
Or there's probably someone somewhere in that organization is like, should we put this on this? Guys, this is probably not good. And nobody listened to them.
The microphone hardware and these kinds of things are really shockingly good. I think there's a forum post somewhere where the Alexa picked up somebody having a conversation 3 rooms over and perfectly transcribed it. Like it misheard something and was like, Alexa, transcribe this. And it totally did, even though it was 3 rooms over, and it was like, there's no way that it would be that good, and it totally worked fine.
It's worth it, right? They should put as much money into those microphones as they can because look what it gets them.
Yeah.
They wouldn't put a microphone like that in a consumer product they sold you that they weren't going to use to spy. Well, the holidays are over, and if you got any sort of DNA sequencing kit or someone in your family did, you should do everything you can to stop that from happening because 23andMe, not only did they lose it all, but they will not take responsibility.
23andMe tells victims it's their fault that their data was breached because they used the same password on the 23andMe site as somewhere else. They still are sticking to their guns that it's a credential stuffing attack, but I think time will tell in the not too distant future whether or not that was true.
But even if it was a credential stuffing attack, that's only the people that reused passwords. If you were related to someone that used passwords, you also got breached, even through no fault of your own. You could be 2-factored. You could use a 255-character password, whatever. Doesn't matter if cousin Dale was, 1, 2, 3.
Well, I mean, if you're more susceptible to certain kinds of disease because of family genetic history, I guess that is your fault as well.
I saw a bumper sticker the other day on the back of a truck that said, "Raise hell, praise Dale." I was like, wow, that's been a while since I've seen a reference.
That's interesting. I saw a raise hell eat cornbread.
Huh.
Yeah. But is that some sort of like car gang?
I
that's
don't
like
know.
the Raise Hell
I
gang?
saw it the other day, but it was in like, not our town, but like the mountain town nearby.
There have been a couple of memes people have posted about us that was like become ungovernable, but it was just some silly thing that we said.
I like the become ungovernable memes.
You should, on your back windshield, you should put Raise Hell and Rivendell.
Oh.
New product for the
I
Level 1
was sitting there like,
store.
ooh, we could make that.
We'll get sued for that.
Yeah, I have to be careful whenever we've done something that's even like vaguely referencing another franchise, because
Can you spell it different?
Rivendell. Could use, well, no, it would still be, I'll say you could use the Elvish word Imladris, but no one
be
would know.
worse.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah.
worse.
Well, Google had a bit of a malware problem, and because Google wants to always sync you among all your devices and keep you logged in and not annoy you that you have to log in constantly for them to control your life, they faced extra problems.
Google password resets are not enough to stop these info-stealing malware strains. Why? Because they can steal the tokens or OAuth or whatever.
And unless you explicitly log out, they can keep doing it for some time because Google doesn't want to make you log in every day.
Those tokens are secure. Turns out, not necessarily.
And if you're planning on doing some traveling, enjoying some of the art of the world in the 2024, you might be a bit disappointed.
Museums hit by Cyberattack on a widely used piece of software. So a lot of museums in the world were negatively impacted by this because it's the software they use to show their collections online.
And to take your money if you donate every month. So
It's funny because I was looking at a website that talks, it's like museum curation and stuff like that. There's no article about this anywhere on it.
they probably don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's unfortunate. Many museums have closed down things and digitized them and put them online. And they were like, yeah, this is just as good. And now it doesn't work. And that travel, while you're going to go to those museums that you can't go to, you might want to stay at an Airbnb, right? But here's an extra thing to worry about that honestly you can't really control.
Notorious Airbnb host charged with allegedly running an $8.5 million nationwide scam. An Airbnb scam across 100 U.S. properties. And you dig into this and it's just like, was this written by the hotel industry? Because this seems like a nightmare scenario.
So it's an interesting game. I don't know how he came up with this. He would list the same property twice for the same time and date. Then,
Anxiety sound.
right before that date, he would email the cheaper customer, the one that was paying less, and be like, oh, there's a problem. We've had an emergency. I need to move you to this other property for the same price. But the other property would be a real piece of garbage. Mm-hmm. And he also had some other games he was playing all around canceling you at the last minute. And then if you tried to get a refund, he was apparently really good at social engineering the people at Airbnb so they wouldn't give you the refund. They're like, oh, you must be right.
It's amazing that it didn't affect his rating, like as a host.
He kept starting over. And
that didn't flag anything on Airbnb's side? That's wild.
he also had puppet accounts, which he was using to give himself positive reviews. And to be like put through this and be okay with it somehow. Like it was an interesting game that he was playing.
There reaches a point where it's like, this is so much effort for one scam. It's like, is it even worth it? But I guess he made a lot.
But it's hilarious. You can read the people describing the alternate B&B that they got, and it was just like bugs
Ugh.
and filth. And if you are in a place where the government is constantly surveilling you and doesn't allow any dissent,
Everyone raise your hand
I live
because
in
that's
one of those
everywhere.
places. But maybe not quite as bad here as it is in Russia, at least not out in the open. You really have to be careful there.
Firmware prank causes an LED curtain in Russia to display pro-Ukrainian messages, and the police arrest the apartment owner. I have no idea
How to say that. Yeah, I've read it.
Slava Ukraini.
That's what I thought. That's how I read it, but I'm not sure if that's right.
I watch a lot of the the military leak footage.
Oh, okay.
That's what it sounds like to me. So this was a Happy New Year bead curtain. So
It would say Happy New Year.
right, you put it up, and then Happy New Year rolls by. The beads
Like
will
a
spell it
shop
out.
front? That's so weird.
Yeah, and you put it up and the thing about it is it doesn't do it until New Year.
Oh, okay.
So it's something else up until then, and then after New Year, it starts to show Happy New Year at midnight. So whoever made this pulled a public repository on how to control these LED strips. What they didn't know is that the maintainers of that repository were Ukrainian. And they put a geocode in it that if you are inside Russia when this happens, it doesn't say Happy New Year.
That's amazing.
So this guy's going to have to go to court and try to explain that in a Russian court. I'm going to be very interested. I would like to follow up on this and see if he gets off or not. Because he's innocent.
Yeah, he is innocent. It's not his fault. Kind of a funny prank in a horrible sort of way.
Before he could get to trial, he had a bad batch of tea and passed away.
Now, we get a lot of stories about India, and from a variety of sources. And I read them, and I cannot fathom what is going on. Did you guys understand this at all?
Yeah, I thought it was much darker than it was at first, and it's still kind of dark, but it's not as dark as I thought it was at first.
Okay, well, I'm eager to hear your interpretation of this.
The headline is All India Pregnant Job Agency to Impregnate, quote-unquote, unfortunate women busted in Bihar, 8 arrested. And so it's like, oh, this sounds like really...
I assume it's surrogacy, right?
Yeah, well, basically, yeah. But it's kind of weird, and we have a lot of audience in India. Maybe they can engage below and let us know. But it seems like women would sign up and say, "My husband can't conceive. I would like to meet somebody discreetly to maybe try another route," and that's what this was. But apparently, that's not okay.
Now, see, I don't think that's correct. I'm not even sure if the women were real.
Oh yeah,
Because
maybe.
the scam here was that they had pictures of women on the website, and they were like, "Hey, these women can't conceive. Are you enough of a stud that you can make these eggs work? Pay a deposit, and if they get pregnant from your super sperm, you get a ton of money as like a bounty." What I couldn't understand if there were actually any women involved.
Oh yeah, maybe.
I think they were just taking the money, and I think some of these guys were like, "Well, worst case scenario," I don't know if it was manual insemination or not, but if the women were involved, then that's much darker.
Yeah.
Or again, I don't understand it.
I imagine this is probably a translated article.
But
So,
the best in my ability to understand this is they just took the deposit and then nothing ever happened.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that makes it kind of funny is that it was basically, it was an online e-shop, and it was just like, fill out the cart, give us your credit card, we'll call you, come down to the office, that kind of thing. It's just like, wow, there really is a website for everything.
I mean, it definitely sounds like a too good to be true type of situation. Watch out for that online. I guess only terrible people were victimized here, as long as the women weren't involved. And this is something that we have seen over and over in the headlines, and I don't know, it feels true.
Revealed, almost half of British teens feel addicted to social media, study says. What if this is actually, like, whatever this is, this evolutionary thing is like a social media, what if this is the part of your personality that is like, I need to take action and do something, and it's getting channeled into this unhealthy thing? It's like whatever that is about your personality, it's like I'm going to look at stuff that's happening on social media and use that to take action in my own life, or be unsatisfied with stuff in my own life, when instead it could be like, let's go do the 4-H volunteer thing, or let's go, clean an old lady's yard, or let's go.
I have heard that, at least, I don't know if this is true everywhere, but in America, they say there's not third spaces, because now it's just your home or work, or in some cases, home and work are the same place, but there's not a third place to hang out, and so social media has filled that role.
We are, as humans, our superpower is the social structure, right? That's how we've dominated the earth. But yeah, I think this just capitalizes on that. I don't know.
It capitalizes on it and also turns all of that force inward instead of turning it into something productive.
But it's also completely fake. So you're not actually getting real feedback from other people. You're just getting this,
Yeah.
Surface level
just this
Gloss.
world that doesn't really exist where anybody can just lie about everything, so they do.
See, also social media influencer nonsense where it's like no one actually lives that way.
No, that's not true. Some people definitely live that way. They're not on social media.
Because they don't want to be, when the guillotines come
Yeah,
down,
they don't want
anyone
people to know, because if you really live like that, you actually want privacy. Unless you're Elon Musk.
He's got something wrong with him.
And our pitiful little, that was actually a social media story too, but yeah, our pitiful little actual social media company
like 3
stories.
stories.
We only have 2. But here, this one is kind of horrible. And it's not anything new. It's just a new coat of paint.
Meet link history, Facebook's new way to track the websites you visit. It's just the same old thing dressed up a different way. But here's the thing, like I looked for more articles about this and more descriptions of this. It tracks your history around the web and it can helpfully show you stuff. The spin that they're putting on it now is that this is your web companion. This is your little helper robot AI thing that's following you around. And you can ask it by searching or whatever else. It's like, hey, do you remember that website where I saw this piece of furniture? Like, where was that? Oh, yeah, it's like that was December 7th, 1982. Here you go.
That was December 7th. You were at the grocery store. Here was your heart rate, your blood sugar, and your mood at the time.
But, Apple has their journal application now that they demoed during the developer thing, and like they were saying with the Apple Watch and everything else. And if you look point by point for the features that Apple has with their journal and history, and Tim Cook saying, "Oh, this is very private. We're gonna keep it on your device." Blah blah blah. It was every bit as invasive as what Zuck is talking about here, and that people took it to 2 completely different ways.
Also, they did admit, you can tell they're a little bit afraid of this whole antitrust EU privacy thing. They did admit, yeah, we will use this for ads. So there is that. But you can delete it after 90 days. Why would it take 90 days? Because they need to use it for the ads.
And because that's what Google can get away with, and that way they can say, well, you didn't do this to Google.
Also, weirdly enough, that's only on mobile. Desktop, you cannot access it.
Well, you get so much more sensor data. I mean, even just logging the accelerometer. The accelerometer is not considered a privileged sensor, but getting data from the accelerometer, if somebody's moving, if the phone has been sitting somewhere for a long time.
She's dropped her phone on her face at least 5 times while browsing.
And the most hated company of 2023 continues to get smashed by everybody in the media and now everybody in finance, it seems.
Fidelity marks down X valuation by 71.5%. Good Lord.
Ooh. Ooh.
Now, that is not just a company that's doing research on X. That is a stakeholder in X. So they're saying, these X shares that we have, we're going to go ahead and mark these down to avoid any confusion later on.
Well, they're a mutual fund company, so they invest in a whole bunch of companies, and they're writing that off. Which is unusual because these companies, like the real estate companies in San Francisco, they haven't written off the value of their downtown offices that have been vacant for a couple of years. Those are still going to rent for $1,000 a square foot, and I've got some news for them. No, they're not.
Aren't they underwater on all their real estate anyway?
Well, the more they write off, the more that they try to bring current, the more underwater they are, probably the more panicked their investors will be. And so it's just it's a shell game at this point for like where the real money is, because it's like the value of this property was when we last appraised it 8 years ago, and it's like, well, it's worth like 25% of that now because it's all commercial real estate.
And if you market to market, you lose the ability to get debt out of it.
Yeah.
Unfortunate. Anyway, that's been this episode, which was very short. We're sorry.
How's your 2024 off to engagement challenge? Like, what did you do for the holiday? Welcome back. Also, stuff.
Yeah.
Fun times.